Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
Ready to take the plea?
First up, we're at the Oklahoma County Courthouse in Oklahoma City. The man seen here in the brown jacket about to enter the courtroom is David Knight. The 30-year-old's in court today for a hearing regarding drug possession charges, but he's unaware there's also an outstanding warrant for his arrest. So before deputies can take him into custody, Knight slips out of the courtroom. His exit is perfectly timed, hitting the elevator just as the doors are opening. On the ground floor, Knight steps out of the elevator, gets his bearings, then makes a break for it. It looks like he might slip out under the radar. But now comes the toughest part, getting past the last security checkpoint and this deputy. With the officer on his heels, Knight bursts through the exit and out onto the street. It's a flat-out foot race for freedom. And the winner is the deputy, who, just out of the camera's view, catches Knight and brings him down with a tackle in front of some curious bystanders. He was taken into custody and charged with obstructing an officer. He'd later plead guilty and was given a 1-year suspended sentence, meaning jail time is deferred as long as he abides by the conditions of his probation. Next, we're in Pontiac, Michigan, for the sentencing of Brianna Smart. The 22-year-old was convicted of fleeing and eluding police, resisting and obstructing a police officer causing injury, assault with a deadly weapon, and driving with a suspended license after she fled a traffic stop. Now, before Judge Hala Jarboe hands down a sentence, she offers Smart a chance to address the court.
I would like to send my deepest apologies to his office. I never meant for none of this to happen.
No, let's back up. You did. Because your actions were all deliberate, okay? This isn't the time to make excuses or to justify anything you did. You need to own it.
What Smart must own up to is this. She's driving the vehicle making a left turn here. Behind her, an Auburn Hills police officer runs her plate and discovers Smart is the registered driver of the vehicle, and that she has a suspended license. After pulling the car over, he confirms that Smart is behind the wheel.
You're Brianna, right? You know, license suspended?
Yeah, I know my license is suspended, no. I know I got to put that on the plate and just told you my license is suspended.
Step it out for me, okay? Leave your cell phone inside, please.
Yeah, the police just pulled me over.
Keep your cell phone inside.
I don't know why he pulled me over. He didn't tell me why. What was the reason he pulled me over?
Okay.
Excuse me. Don't touch me, sir.
Smart refuses the officer's order to put down her cell phone and continues talking to the person on the other end.
He's harassing me. He's putting handcuffs on me, Jalen. Jalen, he's touching me. He's hitting me, Jalen. You need to come up here. No, I'm not putting my hands in the What's up?
You're under arrest.
I don't know. You're not arresting me for what? You never told me why you took me. You never told me why you were. You never told me why you put me on. Okay, so you're putting your hands on me. I'm a free person.
After resisting being handcuffed, Smart pushes her way back into the vehicle. The officer then tries to pull her from the car. Smart attempts to drive off. With the officer still holding onto her arm, Smart throws the car in reverse and hits the gas. Her open door slams into the officer, pushing him backwards, nearly crushing him between it and the front of his cruiser. Luckily for the officer, Smart's car was brought to a stop when it slams into his car before he gets pinched in between. Smart fled the scene and was arrested later that night. The officer was treated for minor injuries at the hospital and released. Now at sentencing, it's clear Judge Jarboe has little patience for Smart's disregard for the law.
What you did was deliberate. You not only rammed into that officer, you rammed into his vehicle, and then you took off. The only thing that you were concerned about was yourself and getting out of that situation.
And I apologize. My deepest apologies to this officer. Truly sorry. I'm just happy that I pray every day that he wasn't, severely hurt. I'm very sorry, y'all. I got 2 kids at home, Braylon and Brighton, and both young. Braylon is 1 and Brighton is 8 months old. This is my first time in trouble, and I understand that I made a bad choice. I do understand I just want to go home with my kids. I just want to be a good mother to my kids.
Anything else? Not only did he enjoy his life,
22-year-old is facing several charges from an incident where she fled the scene of a traffic stop. Now standing before Judge Hala Jarboe, she just finished making her final plea and awaits her sentence.
Thank you for allowing me to stand in front of you and say what I have to say.
you need to grow up. So you have 2 young kids, but you are still acting like you're that age. The only reason that you are not going to go to prison today is because you don't have a criminal history. But you're going to stay in the Oakland County Jail, and there are going to be a slew of conditions. You're sentenced to 2 years probation, 365 days jail, 56 days credit.
Typically, sentences of under a year served at a county jail rather than state prison. Smart is also ordered to complete 100 hours of community service, accept mental health treatment, and attend an anger management program. Judge Jarboe also makes it clear that Smart's behavior will be under the microscope every day moving forward.
I'm promising you this today. If you come back on the slightest violation, whatever that is, if that means that probation department tells you to show up at 8:30 and you show up at 8:35, you are going to the Department of Corrections. You will go to prison. Do you understand that?
Next, we're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida for a bond hearing. 28-year-old Tyra Van Zant is facing a long list of charges, including grand theft and resisting arrest, after she was caught stealing more than $400 in jewelry and purses from a department store.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are you doing, sir?
Today, Judge John Hurley will decide if she's eligible for bond. But as Van Zant waits for the hearing to start, she begins pleading her case to a higher court.
Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. And Jesus, stay out of the shadows. Please don't if you release me from jail, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
Unfortunately for Van Zant, the ultimate judge is not presiding over this hearing. Instead, it's Judge Hurley, who seems caught off guard by the defendant's prayers.
Please don't if you release me from jail, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
Before Judge Hurley dives into Van Zant's charges, questions about her professional life take center stage.
Are you employed when you're not in jail?
Yes, sir.
What type of work is it? Oh,
I work at Pure Platinum.
Pure Platinum might be considered a place of heavenly bodies, just not in the biblical sense.
I'm not going to ask any further questions along that line. By the way, I don't know anything about where you work. What people say in here, I don't know anything about anything like that.
As Judge Hurley continues to read more details about the severity of Van Zant's crimes, the tone of the hearing begins to sour.
Wow. They had to tase the defendant to bring her down. She wouldn't stop.
A closer look at Van Zant's recent criminal history also reveals this isn't her first time facing very serious charges.
You've been arrested 8 times in a matter of a couple of years. I don't know, it's like every time you go out your front door, you're getting arrested. So she gets arrested, you said in June? She got arrested in June for obstruction, cannabis, and cocaine, and now she has to get tasered in and she wants me to let her out and have a second chance. Huh, interesting.
Please, I'm asking you for a second chance, sir.
Well,
please, so I can get my life together.
I wonder what you told the judge after the first, the second, the third arrest, the fourth arrest, the fifth.
Please, I'm in a Christian unit program here, sir, and I've come to found God, and I'm really changing my life, and I just want a chance to be able to go to a rehab, sir.
Right.
Please have mercy on me, Judge.
After a brief pause, Judge Hurley makes his ruling.
Ma'am, I'm going to let you stay in right now. I think that's the safest place for you. Thank you.
Oh, my God.
Tyra Van Zant later pleaded no contest to grand theft in the third degree, resisting arrest without violence, possession of an unlawfully issued driver's license, and criminal use of personal ID information. She was sentenced to 180 days in jail and 3 years probation.
Oh, my God.
We now head to Stillwater, Oklahoma, for a lesser-known aspect of the legal system that we rarely touch here on Court Camp, the potentially dangerous business of bail bonds. Seated behind the desk of Signature Bail Bonds is owner 41-year-old Chastity Carey. A week earlier, she was hired by this man, Brandon Williams. Carey paid his $35,000 bond so he could be released while waiting to return to court to face charges of second-degree burglary and possession of marijuana. The third person in the office is Chastity Carey's 19-year-old son and the butt of Williams' jokes.
You want to do? No, you're a boy, ain't you? Just got out of jail. Ouch. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I get on your mom nonstop. Well, I don't.
But this is no laughing matter. Williams is unaware that Carey and her son are planning to revoke his bond and take him into custody after they learned he was planning on leaving the state for a trip to Florida to attend his mother's funeral.
What? What do you mean?
Turn around.
What's going on here?
I'm going to sit and talk to you.
Well, I'm not getting no cups.
Yeah, actually you are.
What?
Speedy on the way over. You can turn around.
Williams quickly realizes Carey isn't playing around.
Open the door. Hey, don't put your hands on me.
Turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
Don't put your hands
Turn
on
around
me.
and put your hands behind your back.
Why? What are you doing this to me for? Why are you doing it?
Ow! Hand behind your
What are you doing this to me for, man? Wow. Mom, you just shot him.
I did. Talk to me.
Mom, oh my God.
911. 911.
Mom, you.
After Williams is blocked from leaving through the door,
Why are you doing it?
he tries climbing out a window just off camera and onto a balcony below. That's when Carey grabs a loaded handgun from her desk and fires a single shot, striking Williams in the lower back.
Mom, you just shot him.
I did. Talk to me.
Mom, oh my God.
911. 911.
Mom, you.
On the phone, Carey reaches 911.
911. I just shot a man on top of the roof of the town center.
Okay.
I'm on the third floor.
Did you say you caught a man or you shot a man?
I shot. I need you to hurry. I'm a bondsman. He was coming after me.
Control 41, shots fired.
I shot him. Oh my God.
Police and paramedics arrive shortly after, but Williams is pronounced dead at the scene. In the police interviews that followed, Carey claimed she was acting in self-defense and that Williams had attempted to take the gun away from her right before she pulled the trigger. The video, however, appeared to tell a different story. Carey was later arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Cameras were not allowed in the courtroom during the 4-day murder trial, but the surveillance video would be a key piece of evidence for both the prosecution and the defense. The state argued Carey was not acting in self-defense because the video showed Williams trying to get away from her when she shot him in the back. The defense, however, said, quote, "What's not on the video is the reasonable doubt." And what that means is to convict Carey of first-degree murder, jurors would need to believe that she deliberately intended to kill Williams. Ultimately, the jurors decided the state's case did not meet that burden of proof. Carey was found not guilty of first-degree murder. The victim's ex-wife has since filed a civil lawsuit against Carey.
Your Honor, we have is a CAS event.
Next, we're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for a video bond hearing. The defendant, 24-year-old Francisco Casavant, was arrested after a homeowner's security camera captured him doing more than just trespassing.
He was found in the front yard of a woman's house, caught on video, masturbating.
Here's Casavant, who lives just 2 blocks away, prowling the yard for nearly 2 hours, exposed, and looking into windows of the home, including one which the homeowner said gave him a direct view of her 7-year-old daughter inside. After police were called, Casavant was found hiding in a nearby shed and arrested. He was charged with an unnatural or lascivious act, resisting an officer without violence, and burglary of an unoccupied dwelling for removing a landscaping paver from the yard he was using to stand on.
All right, good morning, Mr. Casavant.
Now at his bond hearing, Judge Tabitha Blackman learns this isn't the first time he's been arrested for this type of crime.
Mr. Casavant has a lengthy history of indecent exposure cases, starting back with 2017 cases. He actually has 5 priors for indecent exposure.
As it turns out, at the time of the incident in question, Casavant was still on probation and awaiting trial for another case. He was also supposed to be wearing a GPS ankle monitor.
Mr. Casavant was not released from custody until February 25th of this year, at which time by March 17th, he cut off that electronic monitor and a pretrial warrant was issued. After that monitor was cut off, he clearly went out and committed this offense. Based on his lengthy history of indecent exposure offenses, very similar to this case, the escalating pattern of behavior, the state would be asking that you continue to hold him no bond on those no bond holds.
The judge agrees.
At this time, the court is maintaining the no bond holds. Sir, you're in order to have no contact with the alleged victim, direct or indirect, and not to return to her listed property.
But as Judge Blackman lays out pretrial conditions, Casavant seems disinterested and can be seen talking to someone on camera.
Mr. Casavant, are you listening to me?
Yes, ma'am.
What did I just say?
I don't know what you said. I ain't lying.
Looks like Casavant is once again caught with his pants down.
Okay, so I'm going to do it again, sir. If you don't listen to my release conditions, I could change them because you're not listening.
Francisco Casavant was being held without bond until his next court hearing. Joining me now is Janelle Drayton, the homeowner who captured Casavant's crime on her home security camera. Janelle, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
No problem.
How'd you first notice that he was there just outside your home?
I found out when my son, who'd gone out to take the trash out, he noticed that one of the pavers that's in our backyard that we use as a step was missing. And I initially thought maybe some kids playing around took it, or, somebody just being absent-minded came by and moved it.
What was your reaction when you first saw him on the home security camera?
Just chills. I was afraid. It's difficult to put my feelings into words, but I think the best way that I could put it is I was scared.
That must have been pretty upsetting.
Yeah, I've moved since that incident because it was scary. I don't think I've ever been through a situation like that before, but I have relocated since then just because of the vulnerability of that area.
Well, Janelle, I am so glad to hear that you and your family are happy and safe in your new home. And thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
Call the buzzer. Call the...
First up, we go to Houston, Texas, for the trial of Terry Thompson. He's been charged with murder in the death of 24-year-old John Hernandez. The incident occurred at this restaurant when an intoxicated Hernandez, who's here with his wife, stepped outside the diner. That's when Thompson pulled up with his daughters and allegedly saw Hernandez urinating in the parking lot. Some words were exchanged, and according to Thompson, Hernandez threw a punch. In this footage, you can see Thompson in the red shirt wrestle Hernandez to the ground. He then puts Hernandez in a chokehold and gets on top of him. Meanwhile, Thompson's wife, Shauna, an off-duty sheriff's deputy, arrives at the scene.
Quit it! Stay the down! You want me to hit you again? Stop right now!
There's Shauna holding Hernandez's arm down. But the much larger Thompson has Hernandez pinned to the ground. The woman attempts to record the incident, but the bystanders block her view while the struggle continues in the background.
No, stop! Why are you recording? Just stop! It's illegal to record! Just stop!
Thompson and his wife eventually let him up. But by then, Hernandez was unconscious. Realizing how serious the situation had become, Shauna began to administer CPR on Hernandez. Paramedics arrived and took him to the hospital. 3 days later, Hernandez died from his injuries. Both Thompson and his wife were charged with murder and pled not guilty. The trial of Terry Thompson ended in a hung jury, as 11 of the 12 jurors voted not guilty. But since it was a hung jury, the state tried him a second time. This time, the prosecution adds new witnesses and digs into Thompson's past, claiming he was a violent man with a hot temper who had a history of assaulting his own children. They also showed footage of the incident in court, arguing Thompson used excessive force and had a defenseless Hernandez in a chokehold for over 3 minutes.
At the moment, 24-year-old John Hernandez gives up. At the moment, 24-year-old John Hernandez taps out. You continue. It's certainly not self-defense. And it's murder.
Meanwhile, Thompson's attorney argued it was self-defense, and that Hernandez, who was drunk the night of the incident, was the true aggressor, and that according to his own wife, couldn't handle his alcohol.
He's a mean drunk. He's a loudmouth. He's an ass. Those are her words, not mine.
After hearing and seeing all the evidence presented, the jury returned with a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Terry Brian Thompson, guilty of murder.
Before he learns his sentence, which could be anywhere from 2 years to life, Hernandez's wife shows Thompson some sympathy.
You repent for what you did. I will forgive you. Because there's nothing I can do. There's nothing else to say.
Now the term of Thompson's sentence are read by Judge Kelly Johnson.
Assess his punishment at confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for 25 years.
Thompson was sentenced to 25 years in a Texas prison and won't be eligible for parole until the year 2031, when he'll be 55 years old. Thompson did file an appeal with the state, but it was denied. As for his wife, Shauna, she was fired from the sheriff's office. The murder charge against her was dropped, as the prosecution believed they did not have sufficient evidence to convict. Next, we're in Miami, Florida, for a bond hearing with Judge Mindy Glazer presiding. Appearing before her in a suicide prevention smock is 23-year-old Karina Corbalon, a self-proclaimed Instagram model. Her alleged crime? Murder. One day earlier, Corbalon reportedly showed up at ex-boyfriend Alejandro Sanchez's house following an argument and fired 15 shots at him from a semi-automatic handgun as he stood outside his home. 3 of the bullets struck Sanchez in the back. He was rushed to the hospital, but later died from his injuries. Now the judge reads the charges against Corbalon.
You were arrested for 1 count of second-degree murder.
Neighbors confirmed that Corbalon and Sanchez were no longer together at the time of the shooting. Looking at the evidence before her, Judge Glazer then makes a quick bond ruling.
There's probable cause for the charge of second-degree murder. It's no bond. Good day, ma'am.
But before the defendant is dismissed, Judge Glazer notices a woman clearly in distress in her courtroom.
Do any of you care to say anything?
She shot my son in cold blood.
Come here.
She deserves to pay for that. She took his life. He was 20
So
years old.
the victim's family's in court and they're very upset.
She took my son's life.
So, ma'am, what's going to happen is there's going to be an arraignment in 21 days, and the state will decide what the appropriate charges are to file.
As the victim's mother mourns the loss of her son, the defendant remains emotionless.
Everybody here is presumed not guilty. I know how you feel. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I'm sorry for your loss.
No, you don't know.
I don't know. And
she shot him in his back. She shot him and killed him.
So the state will make a decision on the appropriate charges to file, and then this has to play its way out through the court system. And she's entitled to have a trial and be treated a fair trial. And it's up for a jury to make the decision at a later date.
Yes.
I'm very sorry for your loss.
And before the hearing ends, Sanchez's mother makes it clear she'll be there until the end to get justice for her son.
I want to be involved in everything because I want to see her pay for what she did to my family.
Karina Corbalon is currently awaiting trial for the charge of second-degree murder. Next, we take you to Clark County, Nevada.
Let me go.
This is 36-year-old Latasha Williams. She's charged with kidnapping and child endangerment following allegations she threatened 2 children at an apartment complex. She's in court for a mental health hearing to determine if she's fit for trial.
3 different opinions. Dr. Joseph White said that I was bipolar. Dr. Sussman said that I was competent to stand trial. And Dr. Bradley doesn't like me.
Okay.
So she did.
She's remanded into custody.
All right.
But after seeing 3 different doctors, one of whom she didn't get along with, Judge Jackie Glass has her remanded into custody and wants her to see yet another one.
And I have an
Get
appointment
somebody
today.
else to do other than Bradley, to do the evaluation.
And how long will it take?
What do you think, 2 weeks?
Judge Glass is ready to move on, but Williams is not.
No, hold on a second. I'm not done talking.
And as officers try and take her in, she resists.
I got kids and let me go. I got kids and responsibilities. Y'all, let me go.
Let's go, come on.
No, let me go. Let me go.
3 officers are unable to contain Williams, who's cuffed and continues to fight.
Let me go. Let me go. Let me go. Let me go.
Without the use of her arms, Williams uses her legs and seemingly tries to put one officer in a scissor hold.
Let me go.
Watch as both of her shoes go flying.
Let me go.
A 4th officer comes over to assist.
Let me go.
The officers seem to have things under control.
Quit resisting. Come on. Resist.
But Williams has no intention of going quietly.
I have enough of you guys abusing me and throwing me in jail like I'm a animal. I got kids and responsibility. I don't have time for this trial. They're trying to accuse me of something I didn't do.
Calm down.
I've had 3 evaluations. That should be enough to satisfy the court's argument. Tired of these trifling judges.
Williams is finally restrained, but not before one officer suffers a cut to his face, as well as a knee injury. Williams is still frustrated as she's removed from the court.
She knows I've seen 3 psychologists, but that doesn't count. Sorry, bitch.
Later, Williams makes a deal with the state. Kidnapping and child endangerment charges are dropped, but she pleads guilty to disorderly conduct and serves 25 days in jail. She also agrees to take impulse control counseling.
I have very rarely in my life looked into the eyes of a monster.
We're in Lockport, New York for the sentencing hearing of Anthony Allen. The 19-year-old was found guilty of multiple crimes, including the second-degree murder of Renee Greco, a counselor at the group home for troubled youth where he lived. Allen and another resident of the home, Robert Thousand, allegedly blindsided Greco by throwing a blanket over her head before bludgeoning her to death with a wooden chair leg. They then stole money from the office of the group home and a van before being arrested. When given the chance to speak, rather than taking any responsibility for the heinous crime, Allen goes on the offensive, attacking the judge, Sarah Sperazza.
You disgrace the title honorable, and you don't deserve to have it in front of your name.
Allen and his defense team claim the judge made a critical error that led to his conviction when she allowed the prosecution to change the wording of the indictment during trial. The original indictment stated Allen and co-defendant Robert Thousand were the only two involved in the murder, while the amended version added the words, "or others." The defense argued that change meant anyone present at the time could have been the one who actually killed Rene Greco, making the state's burden of proof that much easier to convict Allen.
Judge Sparetta changed the wording of the indictment with the hopes that her influence as a judge and her intimidation as an authority figure would do the trick and persuade the jury into convicting me. But in reality, to any observant person, she made herself look unprofessional and desperate. I am pretty sure you have been waiting to be able to hold someone responsible since day one, but the fact of the matter is that I'm not responsible for the death of Renee.
The only truly violent person in that home was Mr. Allen. Everyone was terrified of him. I have very rarely in my life looked into the eyes of a monster. And from the first moment I saw Mr. Allen, he's one of the three.
Judge Sparrazza's dark assessment is echoed in the lengthy punishment she hands down to Anthony Allen. 25 years to life. Allen's co-defendant, Robert Thousand, who testified against him, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter for bludgeoning Rene Greco and was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Ricardo Baron Reyes.
Next, we take you to bond court in Florida's Broward County. Judge John Hurley presiding. The defendant is Ricardo Reyes, a non-English speaker who's here on a trespassing charge. An officer presses the microphone button to allow communication with the judge and defendant.
Baron Reyes.
Right away, Reyes goes for the button.
Good. Don't touch that, sir. Sir, don't touch that.
Hey, don't touch it.
Lo toque.
Don't touch it.
No lo toque, no lo empuje.
Maybe you could use some... Oh, there he goes again.
Reyes doesn't appear to be getting the message.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Okay, good.
Bueno.
Sir, you're here for trespassing.
Usted está aquí por un acceso ilegal.
Oh, there he goes. Please don't touch the microphone.
Por favor.
Okay. Okay.
Finally, Reyes complies, but Judge Hurley takes a final peek before he begins.
Would you like to resolve your case today? Go home today. You could leave today.
Usted podría irse a su casa y se puede ir hoy. ¿Quiere resolverlo?
Sí.
Of course, yes.
Do you plead guilty?
¿Se declara culpable?
No.
No.
We're going to send this Judge Lerner around.
By now, Judge Hurley's more frustrated than amused and decides to send him to a different judge before wrapping up.
Thank you, sir.
Gracias, señor.
Have a nice day.
Que tenga buen día.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Oh, he's going at it again. Yes.
But wait, this isn't over. Reyes is free to leave, but he apparently doesn't want freedom. He wants that button.
Oh, boy. Hey, he's having a good time. I mean, it doesn't look like he's in distress. Oh, he's taking it with him.
Oh, boy.
Forget about the button. Now Reyes is going after the lectern.
No, sir, let go of the lectern. No! No, he's back. Oh. No, sir, you have to leave tell him to leave.
Váyase, señor, váyase, váyase.
Sir, leave
Vaya,
the
vaya,
lectern
vaya, vaya.
alone.
It looks like Reyes is finally done for the day.
Oh, Lord. Well, I guess there's a first for everything.
But wait, it can't be.
Oh, here comes he's back.
Oh, the hand, he's there, the hand.
Finally, the defendant's removed and sent to another judge. Reyes eventually pled guilty, paid a fine of $293, but served no jail time.
If he comes back for another curtain call...
Can't take away my rights, period, anyways. My rights are inalienable, sir.
Next, we're in Phoenix, Arizona, where Michael Crane, a self-identified sovereign citizen, has requested to change his plea from not guilty to guilty for just a few of the many charges hanging over his head. The 38-year-old's facing 3 counts of first-degree murder in a separate case for allegedly shooting 3 people to death inside their homes during 2 separate robberies. But today, he's pleading guilty to lesser charges of burglary, theft, and weapons misconduct in 2 cases unrelated to the alleged murders.
Mr. Crane, it's my understanding that you wish to change your plea. I've already told you that I'm willing to accept responsibility for all these charges. So that is what I'm telling you right now.
You're giving up your right to a jury trial where you be represented by a lawyer. Do you understand that?
I understand that, but I don't agree with that.
You're giving up your right to cross-examine or question any witness the state called. Do you understand that?
I understand that, but I don't agree with that.
To say Crane doesn't agree with the legal process is an understatement.
You understand that if you plead guilty, you're giving up constitutional rights.
Which U.S. are we talking? Are we talking about the federal constitution of the District of Columbia, that U.S. Constitution, or are we talking about the state of the Union common law constitution?
For nearly an hour, Crane spouts more sovereign law ideology.
I ask you again, are we working under admiralty law, under statutory jurisdiction? Let the record show that Mr. Crane is a sovereign man born in the states of the human rights. If you're calling me a person or a domicile or an agent in the District of Columbia, sure, you can take away my rights, but I am neither of those.
Finally, he does enter a guilty plea, which, if you can remember, was the whole purpose of the hearing.
It's a choice to file or a choice for me to accept your plea. Given that choice, which would you prefer?
The choice to accept the plea only under my conditions.
And just when it looks like the hearing was going to end, it doesn't.
I'm not going to sign a contract that's going to send me to prison, not voluntarily.
Crane argues he won't sign any legal paperwork to make his guilty plea official.
Are you saying that you have the authority to force me, a sovereign American man, that's going to send me to prison? Because this is what this comes down to at the end of the day.
Yes.
Wow, okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear.
Ultimately, Michael Crane would affirm his guilty plea for the charges of burglary, theft, and weapons misconduct. But before he's sentenced for those charges, Crane pleaded guilty to numerous other crimes, including the 3 counts of murder. That plea came as part of an agreement with the prosecution where they took the death penalty off the table. He was later sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms in prison. That's it for this edition of Court Cam. I'm Dan Abrams. Thanks for watching.